Well, now, as I alluded to earlier, it is a great pleasure to welcome as my Thursday interview guest Mario Rosenstock, impressionist. There's so many voices, so many images that he has done impressions on. This interview is slightly different. A, it's a little longer, and B, we're not just here to plug his latest tour, which is going gangbusters. It's sold out. We're actually here to find out the man behind the performance. And it's a great pleasure to work. First of all, where did the name Mario Rosenstock come from? It sounds like either a chipper or a legal firm.
It's a mixture between both, Ivan. Rosenstock is a German name, and I found out that it comes obviously from my grandfather. My grandfather was an officer in the German army in World War II, in the Wehrmacht. And he was a young medical officer in World War II, and he was stationed on the island of Jersey, on the Channel Islands, which the Nazi forces were occupying. And believe it or not, he met my grandmother, who was a nurse from Athenry, whose maiden name was Keane. And they fell in love across war-torn Europe. They went back to Germany and saw out the war in Germany. My father was born at the very, very end of the war in 1945. And my grandfather, George, and his wife then at the time came back to Limerick. And he settled in Limerick.
What era?
Just after 1945. So he settled in Limerick in the town of Kilfinnan in County Limerick and became the local doctor. And eventually gained a great reputation for himself as the German doctor, the blonde-haired, tall German doctor, and they'd come from far and wide to be diagnosed.
Was he ever a Nazi?
He was not a Nazi, Ivan, and in fact I only found out recently, and I was alerted by a gentleman on a great podcast called Irish History. It's called the Irish History Podcast, and he said, Mario, have a look at this, and it's some research I dug up on your grandfather. And the long and the short of it, Ivan, is people could look this up on YouTube now. There was a famous Nazi called Otto Skorzeny, and he was one of Hitler's go-to paratroopers. In fact, he was responsible for the rescue of Mussolini after Mussolini had been kidnapped. And Hitler said, we need some serious paratroopers to go and get Mussolini, so they got this guy Skorzeny. Skorzeny later settled in Ireland. And a party was thrown for him in Clontarf to welcome him to Ireland. One of the people at this party was a very young Charles J. Haughey, TD, in North County Dublin, who welcomed this German with open arms to this country. And it suddenly emerged that the newspapers got wind of the fact that there was a Nazi in our midst, and that he was using Ireland as a potential place for residence in Ireland. And my grandfather heard about this, and he was a German living in Ireland. And I was very proud to recently discover that he alerted the media at large by sending letters to the Irish Times and by representations he made to the civil service and the government at the time to say that this was not tolerable and that we shouldn't be supporting any member of the Nazi regime or former member of the Nazi regime. So I was really proud, because when I was in school I used to be called Dr. Death. Because if you're growing up in Waterford and you're a 7-year-old boy and they say, oh, there's our man Neil from Waterford, boy, the German, the Dr. Death there, boy, the Nazi. And so I used to be going around thinking I was a Nazi, you know, and it's, you know.
Okay,
and
there's a little bit of a leap, though, from Limerick GP to your parents. How many siblings did the good doctor have? How many kids?
So he had Michael, he had Gregory, he had Gabriel, he had Maureen, he had Raphael, and he had Pascal. So he had
a big family.
Big family.
Of which your dad was
Pascal. And Pascal
was
the first. Pascal was the firstborn, and he was the firstborn, yeah. And so
how does Waterford come into it?
Yeah, so Waterford is my mother's side.
Ah.
So my mother was from County Waterford, and she grew up on a farm.
What was her name?
Her name is Patricia O'Donovan.
Right.
And she grew up in Waterford. And
both your parents are still alive?
Yes, both my parents.
But not your grandparents?
No, my grandparents are not.
Okay. So let's talk about your childhood.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I had a very colourful childhood, Ivan, because I guess I guess, like many people, even though they don't often talk about it, I came from a kind of a splintered family or a fractured upbringing, in the sense that my mum and my dad had let's say, a tempestuous relationship, and they used to split up a lot and get back together and split up a lot.
Were you an only child?
No, my brother Rene is is a year younger than me.
Okay.
And so it was a difficult upbringing from that point of view. And in fact, at one stage,
But what did your dad do?
So my dad did all sorts of things.
But he lived in Waterford?
Oh, yeah. And then he moved to Germany with my mother for a while. But I didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So I was kind of here.
Right.
Yeah.
So did this tempestuous and sort of on-off relationship impact on your childhood?
I reckon it did, because at the beginning they moved to Germany, and they gave me an option, even though I was only 5 or 6, of staying here, which I found very peculiar at the time. And so anyway, I stayed with my grandparents.
So the good doctor retired to live in Waterford?
No.
Oh, you lived in Limerick?
This was my mother's parents.
Oh, I see.
So I lived on a farm in Waterford.
Where?
Yeah, in Waterford, just outside Waterford, about a mile and a half outside Kilcoen.
All right.
And so I grew up.
The Cummeragh Mountains wouldn't be too far away.
Yeah, or
would they?
Kilmeaden and all that sort of stuff.
Bit of cheese.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in Waterford on a farm, which I really loved.
With your grandparents?
Yeah, with my grandparents.
And did you visit your parents? Did you take sides in terms of your mother, your father? Or?
No, they went abroad to Germany, and the relationship remained tempestuous when we were abroad, and then they came back a few years later. And I would live with them for a while, and then, that would kind of...
But how did that affect your education, going to school?
Yeah, I was going to school in a place called Water Park in Waterford.
Yeah.
And I had a really good schooling, and I was, good in school and stuff like that. And so it was a...
But were you close to Rene? Was Rene with you, or did he go to Germany?
Well, he went to Germany.
Did he?
Yeah, so that was very peculiar then when he came back.
That's right. Did they offer you the chance to go to Germany?
Well, yes, except I was very young.
Right. Rene was younger.
Yeah, so they brought him.
Right.
And I stayed
Why
here.
didn't you go to Germany?
Well, because I was having an amazing time in school, but I was only 5 or 6, and the family was all kind of, it was a bit tempestuous all the time, and
right.
So I sort of said,
so that meant you had to grow up quite quickly.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's a very peculiar upbringing.
What impact? You're 48 now, heading for 50. When you look back on it, what impact? And I don't want to exaggerate, call it troubled childhood, difficult childhood, kind of unusual childhood. What impact has it had on your life?
Well, I don't want to get too heavy too early, but I think that when you experience something like that, you get on with it. It becomes your normal. And I think it's only later in your life that you kind of look back on it, when you get into your 40s or your late 40s.
Or become a parent yourself.
Exactly, or become a parent yourself. Yeah, that's exactly right, Ivan. And you kind of go, what was all that about? So I think that, you possibly develop, a little bit of an insecurity in relation to, intimacy issues or relationship issues or
so you had
attachment.
A game face for the world.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But also confusing.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying I went all hard.
But insofar as the normality of it, right up to your period where, say, you left home and went to TCD and left Waterford and all of that and went to college, was it stable, as if your grandparents were your parents? They lived for that period.
Yeah, they did.
They were together.
Yeah.
And they were like your parents, were they?
Yeah, they were. My grandmother Dorothy and my grandfather Sean kind of were in loco parentis.
Yeah.
And
so wasn't that abnormal? You did have a structure. You had a home to go to.
No. I mean, one of the things I always look back on, Ivan, is that people can have a fractured childhood, but that doesn't mean that they didn't get lots of love.
Right.
So I was surrounded.
Yeah. In fact, some people overcompensate in different ways.
Yeah. And so
the thing that's on the record, as regards, because I want to get on to your, what you wanted to be in your career and your first job and all that kind of thing. But in terms of today, your parents are still alive. You don't speak to your dad. Are you estranged from your mother as well? Are they back in Ireland?
So, first of all, my dad, I don't really speak to my dad, and I think it's
Well, it's not, you don't really, you haven't spoken to him in 12 years.
Yeah. It's a peculiar relationship. And there was never any obvious or serious falling out.
There wasn't an incident?
Not particularly, no. There wasn't a trigger. It was that, I guess, perhaps there was never enough trust established in all the years leading up to that I guess we've just drifted apart. And
Sorry, whereas with your mother, you do have a good relationship.
yeah, my mother, I have a much better relationship.
Okay. Normal relationship?
I wouldn't say normal, but I
Right.
would say much better. And I don't
They're
know what
both in Ireland.
I don't know what constitutes normal. And one of the things that I've thought about when I thought about this is that, I mean, I think an awful lot of people experience very, very unusual family situations,
Yeah.
which are their normal,
Yeah.
but which they think if they told anybody in the outside world, they'd go, God, if
No, there's
people only knew my family, they think I'm a
Okay.
freak.
No, there's lots of people, siblings, parents, don't speak, right? I that is not abnormal. But I have a Dr. Ivan take on this, which is that communication is a two-way street. And it's a bit like my fear of flying. The longer I don't fly, the more the phobia builds up. And someday, your father's going to die.
Yeah.
And I want to put it straight up, Mario. It is your fault that you're not speaking to him. You must take responsibility for this. And actually, if it's spurned, if you say, Dad, let's have a coffee or whatever, let's have a pint or whatever, and even if it goes badly, at least you could live with yourself in 30 years' time and say, well, I made the effort. Are you making the effort? And if you're not, why not?
I probably am not making the effort. Should I?
Yes,
Why?
absolutely. Because you'll benefit from it.
Right.
Do you disagree?
This is something I've probably wrestled with an awful lot. So,
Well, it's not the first time you thought about it.
no, it's not. I just said I wrestled
No,
with it a lot.
I know. Well, like this leads me to the question: are you kind of bloody-minded? Are you a difficult person?
Who isn't bloody-minded, Ivan?
No, some people are people pleasers, and some people are nice, and some people are, And sorry, there's always blame and reasons, and all. And
Yeah.
I'm not being judgmental about it,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, going forward, I would have thought. First of all, I was saying, least said, easy mended. Because there's rows in families. There could be a row over the care of an elderly parent. Could be row about land, row about anything, right? So rows are normal in families. You put up with your relations and you pick your friends, all of that. But in terms of a parent, and because my father died when I was 70, and I used to fight with him, and I wasn't entirely good, because he was my employer as well as my thing. But I put it like this. I wouldn't have liked to end on bad terms insofar as I was pretty supplicant. So the way I try and get through life is to be a people pleaser. To say, how are you, Mario? And I have another saying, least said, easy mended it.
Yeah.
But not talking at all actually burns you up maybe more than him.
Yeah, I think that is possible as well. And I accept that that's a possibility. And it's something that I'm still wrestling with. So it's something that I have
Did you ever get, like I had a breakdown at one stage in my life, did you ever get professional help about those issues?
No.
Right.
But I think that's
a really good idea.
I think it is
There's
a good
really
idea.
good psychologists.
I think so, yeah.
And you know what they do? They listen.
Yeah.
And they let you talk, and then you burst out crying, and then then they move you on.
I think therapy is a great idea.
Yeah. And did you ever consider it?
Yeah, I have.
But you didn't go for it?
No.
Right. You're too busy, maybe. All right. When you went to college and you did economics and politics, was it? Economics and politics. What did you want to be?
Oh, I wanted to be an actor.
Oh.
Absolutely. I mean, the only reason I went to study in Trinity College was to be an actor. But
Surely you should have gone to some guild or academy for acting.
no, not at all. The best place I figured out that you could do acting was the Trinity Players Society.
Amateur dramatics.
In Trinity Players.
Right.
But unfortunately at the time, you say, why didn't you do drama? But at the time there was a thing that if you did drama, they wouldn't allow you to take part in the Players Society.
What did the Players Society involve? Did it involve lots of gigs or what?
Players Society was a semi-professional dramatic society in Trinity, which put on really, really, really good plays and still do, and produce some really fine actors and directors and people involved.
And only undergraduates can be part of it.
Exactly.
Once you qualify, that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's Michael Colgan and all these people went through it, and Dominic West and Kathy Belton and all these actors come in and out of it.
So this wasn't an accidental thing. You actually...
No, I planned it.
Yeah, right.
So I planned...
How'd you hear about it?
Well, so people knew that when you were in school that,
Okay.
that all these actors were coming out of Trinity. Where were they coming out
Right.
of? Everybody from Rough Magic, that theatre company, was coming out of it. And so that's what I wanted to. That's what I wanted to do. So I said I'd have to get an undergraduate degree. So I did economics and politics, and that actually led to a great lifelong interest in politics and political history as well. And believe it or not, Russian and Soviet government as well, which is even a bit more.
My guest is Mario Rosenstock. Can I ask you about your first venture into performance? Because I remember when you were a doctor in Glenroe.
Well, I was a doctor in Glenroe, and I remember getting that part. And I remember,
was that an early gig, or was that
that was what you might describe as a break? So basically, Glenroe was the biggest television show in Ireland at the time. There was regularly 1.2 people watching it every week. Same audience as the Toy Show would be now.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And
Miley, Dinny, Biddy, the whole lot.
And I went for an audition for this character called the new young doctor in Glenroe,
who was courting with
Fidelma and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, and so I went for an audition along with like a lot of actors. And I came home and then they said, listen, we'd like to call you back. And I went, why? And they said, well, we'd like to look at you again for this. And then eventually a call came through and I got this part. Now, when I got this part, Ivan, you have no idea how big that is for your family when you're going to be on Glenroe. It is nothing in comparison to what would be now. Glenroe was the thing. It was a tabernacle. It was the altar on Sunday
People
night.
didn't have much choice. Yeah.
No. And it was also a fine drama as well as being, Wesley Burroughs was writing it and the scripts were really good and it had a comic turn to it.
The Greyhound and the
Dinny and Father
manure
Devereaux.
he used to put on the shop bought eggs. I loved it.
It was brilliant, and it emerged out of Bracken, and Bracken
Yes.
had previously been written by Wesley Burroughs, and it was a really
No,
good
you're
show.
preaching to the convert. So,
Exactly, but the point was that I got the part, and basically my whole family went into meltdown. He's in Glenroe. This is a big deal. So all we had to do then was wait for me to be. I did my Glenroe first episode. And I'll tell you a little story about this now because everybody goes, okay, you're on Glenroe. And I'm telling my friends, I was 21 years of age, Ivan. I was in college and I was still in university. And suddenly I'm in Glenroe and I'm receiving money as a professional actor. And they said, I've done the episode. When it'll be on this Sunday, everybody gathered around the TV to watch me on Sunday. I'm pillow in front of my face watching myself, mortification. Then the phone started ringing afterwards and it was my grandmother. Oh my God, you were so beautiful. You were like Hugh Grant. You were like Hugh Grant. I based my Michael D impression on her and everything. And then the phone started ringing again and it was my friends and they were laughing their head off in the phone. I was going, what's so funny? And they went, the hand. And I went, what hand? The hand. Look at it back on the VT. And so the video cassette and looked back at the episode and I was wearing a Crombie or a kind of an overcoat and I was supposed to be chatting up Fidelma. And anyway, I was supposed to be Mr. Suave Doctor chatting up Fidelma. But my hand had come through the inside of my jacket, and it was like peeking out like a little gerbil out of my jacket. And I looked like a flasher or a pervert or something trying to show. And of course, they didn't see it in RTE, but.
So that's your first big break?
It was,
Where did it go for? Like the Dempsey show, that was in the 80s?
So then I started...
That was in the 80s, 90s?
90s. So then I started doing loads of acting. So I was in the Abbey and the Tivoli and all this sort of stuff and doing loads of plays and all that. And actually as a funny comeback to my German heritage, I ended up doing a film with Mia Farrow and Sam Waterston called Miracle at Midnight, Ivan, in which I played a Nazi.
Right.
But as a kind of a hint as to my comic future career, the name of my Nazi character was Colonel Langer. So it wasn't a Cork Nazi.
But was there a light bulb moment when comedy rather than acting took over?
There, all the time that I'd been doing the acting, even when I was doing serious roles, people would start laughing. Now I don't know if that's them laughing at me or laughing with me, but I'd kind of ask.
And were you trying to be funny?
I'm not sure. I think I was being inadvertently funny in roles. I remember I played a part of a school bully.
It strikes me you don't do anything inadvertently.
Well, I was playing this part of a school bully and everybody started laughing in the audience and they said, you just turned him into a kind of a comic book bully. And I went, oh, right. But they said, that's good though, it's working. And so it seems that I had a bit of a bent for comedy. But really the light bulb moment was when Ian Dempsey joined Today FM in 1999. And in 1998, and then in 1999, he was the biggest radio breakfast show presenter.
He had been on 2FM.
Exactly, and still is the biggest breakfast.
Absolutely.
And revered and loved throughout the country. And he wanted to work with some comedy stuff because he'd always done that with Zig and Zag and all that sort of stuff. And he heard some sketches that I'd been putting out on Today FM earlier in the morning, believe it or not. I'd been doing them at night, but they'd be going out between 5 and 7 in the morning, and he'd be driving into work. And he'd go, what about that guy that's doing the thing? And they said, that's Mario. And said, would you like to meet him? And we met. And Ian and I had what would you call a complementary sense of humour. And I guess what that is, we don't exactly have the same sense of humour, but I really see his sense of humour, and I think he sees my sense of humour. And so we worked together.
We're out of time. I wanted to do on another hour, but 7 o'clock is beckoning. The tour. The upcoming tour. Tell me about it. It's like what? Right, some quickies. What's the work you're most proud of? Either a character or a tour or a particular gift grub thing. What are you most proud of?
Oh, the thing that probably makes me laugh the most is the Flatley stuff, because it's so out there and so ridiculous.
Your most embarrassing moment
in
performing?
I think the hand that I just described in Glenroe, that pervy hand.
You're married to Blonnet.
Yeah.
And you have 2 gorgeous kids.
Dash and Bellamy.
Are they the epicentre of your life?
Oh, completely.
Yes.
Yeah.
What has parenthood taught you?
Forgiveness. To forgive people.
Right.
Yeah. To
You're coming full circle.
To be kinder to yourself as well. You can't get everything right.
Any unfulfilled ambitions? Is there anything you'd like to do? You know, whether it's sell out a particular place internationally.
More straight acting.
More right.
Yeah, particularly.
You could see yourself going back to that.
Oh, definitely. In fact, everything I do, I think, is acting. I don't regard them as impressions. I regard them as characterizations.
Right.
So I regard them as inhabiting a character and being in character.
Tell me about the tour.
The tour is
starts and finishes.
The tour starts in Cork on the 25th of February, and I think all 5 nights in Cork are sold out. Most of the tour is sold out, but there are some tickets available for a couple of nights in the Olympia. On the 31st of March, 1st of April.
What's the website? Just
Ticketmaster.
Yeah, Ticketmaster. Right.
And a couple of tickets available for
How
the
long
INEC
can you see yourself
Killarney.
doing this early? I know you record and so. How long can you see? Like, are you kind of joined at the hip with Ian? As long as Ian does it, you'll do it, sort of thing. Or do you see this as your pension plan for forever?
I do, yeah.
You're worse than the civil service. You can't be got rid of.
I'm going to keep going forever, Ivan. As long as
nobody in this gift grub.
Oh, God. I mean, we're at the vagaries of the listeners for that. We're at the vagaries of the JNLRs, Ivan. Oh, yeah. However long Dennis O'Brien will keep us here.
Well, can I wish you well? And I want to thank you for being our guest.
I actually feel quite shook after that interview.
Do you? Well, there was only a chat because
if that's only a chat, I'd hate to be grilled by you.
That was only
now I know how it feels to be Michael Healy-Rae, be fully ridden by Ivan Yates. Jesus, Ivan, I don't know.
My thanks to my Thursday guest, Mario Rosenstock. We wish you every
Your
continued
Thursday
success, happiness and success, and work on the happiness. And that's it from me on the show this evening. My thanks to the entire team. Have a great night and thanks for listening.